Looking for the latest comic book to add to your collection? How about the last card for that Magic the Gathering Commander deck? Well, the comic book stores got you covered. Shop online at comicbookstore.tcgplayerpro.com or come in person at 30 North Main Street, Glassboro, New Jersey. Pizza people, hope you've been keeping it cheesy. Hollywood Pizza here, and we've got a pretty controlling deck for you today. We actually have straight up blue-white control. That's right, no Lotus Fields, no like combo-y nonsense, none of that. We actually just have a straight control deck for you here, and it actually got better from the Explorer Anthologies, which actually just dropped recently. So the biggest addition to this deck from that anthology is going to be Supreme Verdict, giving the deck essentially a board wipe that's not counterable, but a board wipe with no drawback at turn 4, which is something that this deck always wants. Essentially what we back in the day would call a Wrath of God style effect. So essentially this is pretty much a close to almost like a stock version of the type of deck that you would essentially see most of the time on the ladder. I took a kind of like bare bones basic version of this deck and kind of like essentially added a few different cards to the sideboard and a few different cards in the main deck that will actually give you a little bit more of an edge against potentially the mirror match or some more of the decks that you're actually going to see now that the anthology is available. So let's go over the deck list. We've got 3 portable holes and 3 March of the Otherworldly Light for some removals in the 1-drop slot. So essentially the portable hole can get rid of any non-land permanent that's mana value 2 or less, anything that's problematic, or even like tokens, which is really, really strong. The March of the Otherworldly Light actually gets better as the game progresses, as you're able to sink more mana into it. You're able to exile bigger threats that are either artifact, creatures, or enchantments. On top of that, for just 1 white mana, you're able to get rid of tokens, or potentially any creature land that could be giving you some trouble. Unless it's all the Storm Giant, then it ends up costing you 4 mana, but either way, it's still a really strong card overall. In a format where you kind of need some answers to creature lands. We have a couple of Fateful Absence to kind of help against any problematic planeswalkers, or kind of just like a fast start from our opponent. If that does occur, we just have like, some targeted removal to kind of help smooth the curve out and give us some answers against that. A lot of versions of the deck can play like Jwari Disruptions, usually 4 or 4 Censors. I'm only going with 2 just because Censor does get a lot worse as the game progresses. Even though you're able to cycle it away, it's not necessarily like the best card of the deck. And I myself find that I end up sideboarding it out against most of the matchups anyways. I ended up adding a 3rd Dovin's Veto. The original list only had 2, but adding a 3rd, just in case you do run up against more of the control decks, because there are probably going to be a lot more players playing this on the ladder, just because of Supreme Verdict being out. So having that edge with Dovin's Veto against the other cards in the mirror match, against other cards in control decks, is really, really strong. Maybe stopping like a Sultai Ultimatum as well sometimes. So on top of that, a lot of the main reason too is you're able to counter the Fable on the draw or the play. So just fantastic overall with the veto, and can't be countered, of course. So just a better negate. We also have 1 of Disallow, which is really fantastic here. It's able to counter spell, counter activated ability, or triggered ability. So kind of just helping you have an additional hard counter outside of your standard 4 absorbs, which absorb does counter a spell and gain you 3 life, which is fantastic against aggressive strategies. Maybe some mid-range strategy helping you buy some time, but Disallow gives us that 5th extra hard counter spell that counters any card, or even on top of that, you're kind of able to counter a Planeswalker ability, maybe an activation of a creature land to help save you at some points in the game. So overall, Disallow, just a really strong card. Really, really been enjoying it so far as a 1-of. Might want to add a couple more. Not really sure yet where we want to go, but been enjoying it. We have 1 Narset to kind of help in the mirror match, or potentially just any type of deck that's trying to draw some more cards. It has really great synergy with the Fateful Absence if your opponent kind of doesn't notice and does that on their turn, which could happen. Same as your opponent, maybe, trying to battle with their Teferi, but, you have a Narset down so they don't get the extra draw, which is fantastic. On top of that, it does dig 4 cards deep to potentially get you like a board wipe that you need as well, or, even a Planeswalker. Speaking of Planeswalkers, we've got a couple Wandering Emperors here that do have Flash to kind of help give us a card that gives inevitability like a win condition, or potentially just another removal spell control type card, flooding the board a little bit with some tokens and then ending the game later. 1 of Settle the Wreckage to kind of help with being the 4th board wipe essentially. You could run 4 Supreme Verdicts in the deck. I personally enjoy having 1 Settle the Wreckage, just because it can kind of get the opponent out of nowhere. And then there's also some cards that you do want to exile in this format. So overall, the 1 of Settle has just been really fantastic. A couple of Memory Deluges to kind of help smooth our draws out a little bit and give us some late game reach, being able to flash it back for 7 mana and dig 7 cards deep and get the 2 cards that we need. Just a fantastic card overall. 3 Teferi Hero Dominaria, just a great card since it's been printed. Gives you that end game engine where you're able to draw an extra card, and then if you get to that ultimate, you'll get an emblem that essentially exiles any permanent in play whenever you draw a card, and it can help you get out of a potential problematic permanent for a couple turns with that -3 ability. So Teferi, just one of your best cards in the deck. To help round out our deck here in the 6-drop slot, we've got 1 Farewell, which gives us the ability to essentially board wipe everything, exile it out of play, or the graveyard, artifact, creatures, enchantments, and graveyard. So just a very powerful card. And we have 2 Shark Typhoons, which also help give us some late game reach, maybe make a Shark that's pretty decently sized, can help close out the game, or just slamming the Shark Typhoon down itself, and then just generating a ton of value. For our land base here, we have 1 Aganjo, 1 Hall the Storm Giant, a Castle Vantress, an Otawara, 2 Field of Ruins for essentially our special lands that aren't just lands that tap for blue or white. The Field of Ruin definitely helps with the creature lands, any problematic land that the opponent might have. The Otawara can help bounce something in a pinch, or even bounce one of your own permanents to save it as well. Hall the Storm Giants gives you another win condition, or potentially even just a fantastic blocker that your opponent's going to have a hard time removing, considering that it has Ward 3 when it's a creature. Castle Ventress helps you dig deeper into the deck, making sure that you get the draws that you need necessary as the game progresses as well. And we have the 1 of Aganjo to kind of help give us a little bit of an additional removal spell, and essentially like a card that can't be countered whenever you use the channel ability. So overall, I had a blast with this deck. I think this deck is amazing. I think that you're definitely going to want to take it to the tournament. You're going to rank up with this on the ladder if you like control. I recommend this deck 100%. For the sideboard, we actually have a couple Ether Gusts, which kind of help with specific matchups, like anything that has like red or green permanents. You can kind of help gain a little bit of some tempo back. We have the 4th Dovin's Veto to help against any type of control matchup or any matchup where there's a lot more non-creature spells. Like I said before, it really helps against Fable. We have a couple Mystical Disputes for the mirror match, any kind of blue deck. Just for 1 blue, you can essentially counter any blue spell unless its controller plays 3, so kind of just like a really cheap, efficient spell, and it can even just counter some cards that aren't blue in a pinch if need be. We have an extra Narset to help in the mirror match, or anything that's card value, control type decks, anything like that. 2 Dream Trawlers to kind of help against anything that's aggressive or maybe mid-rangey. Has the ability to be protected. On top of that, it can draw you extra cards, be its own engine, and gain a lot of life back. Really good against the red decks as well. An extra Portable Hold to kind of help round out the play set against anything that's aggressive or potentially like a problematic permanent that costs 2 or less. 1 Soul Guide Lantern to help against anything that's graveyard based. Same as these 2 Rest in Peace. They kind of just help against like a Catavan deck, any type of Gear Hulk deck, any of those strategies. The extra Settle the Wreckage as an additional board wipe, same as the Supreme Verdict. The Settle just helps as being an instant, and the Supreme just helps being there as well on time and not being able to be countered if you need to run into like spirits or anything like that. Hullbreaker as a 1 of as well against the mirror match or anything that's kind of like more of a control deck. Just a really powerful card that you can help leverage against the spells that can't be countered, like the Supreme Verdict or even the Dovin's Veto as well. So just a really powerful card overall. But I really do like the sideboard. Kind of edited it myself a lot more to what I thought we were going to see. Kind of help give you an advantage against a lot more of the strategies in the format. So without further ado, let's jump into some games. Jumping in some games here with some blue-white control. Let's see if some of the additions from the anthologies help us out here. I think this hand's actually pretty decent. I think we're going to keep it here. We're on the play, which is really nice. We've got a counter spell. That's actually like a hard counter. A couple of interactive spells, and another counter spell that is a little bit loose, considering that, you know, if they have the mana to be able to pay for it, it's not really a counter spell, but being able to cycle a little away is really nice. So we're probably more inclined to cycle a little away, considering we have the Dovin's Veto and then the Hole in the March to kind of get rid of most of the, like, any other permanents that would give us some problems. So I think we're going to keep this hand. And we'll also start off with the island, knowing that all of our lands are going to get to come into play untapped here. Llanowar coming down. Okay, so we're playing against what looks to be a green deck. We could keep the Censor in case our opponent plays a 3-drop and taps out. Okay, so drawing a land there is actually still pretty decent considering we're getting closer to being able to cast all the cards in our deck here. And we'll go ahead and pass it back. Okay, Regisaur, yep, we'll go ahead and censor that. So it does look like we're still playing against like a fight rigging type strategy, which is what I potentially thought it might have been. We can actually get rid of the Llanowar Elf here as well. And we have Fateful Absence for a bigger creature. We could also just pass the turn back. But let's say that we're only casting the Veto of the Absence. It's kind of not the best use of our mana. Right now we don't have a card advantage engine going though, which is another issue, at least on our end here. We have the hole to get rid of the elf, so we're 5 and 5 in terms of cards. Opponent does have the additional card here, which would put us down, put them up to 6. They play land, play another creature. And then Fateful Absence it. I think that's fine. I think we can pass it back. We have our 4th land too, so potentially going to be able to hold up the Veto and the Fateful Absence this coming turn. I think I'm okay not using this yet, even though Llanowar Elves is potentially one of the cards that is only really going to be targetable. So they do play the heavy here. So if we just let that resolve, we can take a damage here. Just shoot the heavy down with the Fateful Absence. They will get a clue, but we're not too worried about that. Okay, so we could play the Deserted Beach to give us the option of exiling a card for 3 mana. I think I'd almost feel better getting down this out of the way, and then the Veto can counterspell the fight rigging if it tries to come down. Still have the option to get rid of the Llanowar Elf. It's almost better to target the clue just so that they don't get another draw, but then we kind of like 2-for-1 ourselves just to get rid of the Shakedown heavy. At the same time, we don't necessarily want to give our opponent more cards either. Either one of these will get rid of it. I think we'll still just pass the turn back here. Kind of be a little bit more patient with our cards. So we'll see if they do have more land drops, more big threats. Okay, they do have a pack leader here. And I'm really glad that we were patient with this portable hole now because we actually have like a real target. And if our opponent's tapping out to use the clue, then that actually feels a little bit better. We could also march this at the end of the turn, just because it's better use of our mana. But I actually think it's better to just use the other 1 mana spell that is a little bit more narrow. And we actually can just... So they're going to get 2 creatures off of this. Hoping to potentially hit like a board wipe. We can kill... We would have to kill both of the 1/1s for the 5/5 to not be able to attack. I think we can veto this, considering we're potentially trying to just kill every card that our opponent plays here. Censor is fine as it offers a redraw. Yeah, I think we'll just throw the wolf down the hole and pass the turn back here. Opponent just tapping the elf. Gore Claw. They do have the 1 mana open for it. Does not have haste. They could have a 3-drop here. Yeah, they do, and we can definitely just censor that. I think I'm okay with it. Not getting a redraw, but essentially having an answer for a card they're playing regardless. Hitting the Ventress here is really nice. I think we'll save our mana. This doesn't have any nighttime or anything. Whenever it attacks, each creature, yep, just gets bigger and it makes their stuff cost less. 3 cards for our opponent though, so I'm really hoping the Vantress comes in clutch right now. Looks like they want to go to attack, so I think we'll just exile the Goreclaw. And let's see what kind of spells they have. If they don't attack with the Llanowar, then we know that they have something maybe bigger. Potentially like a Gargaroth. Okay, taking a damage here. Let's see what our opponent has. Okay, another Llanowar and potentially a 3-drop here. No 3-drop, so Disallow isn't terrible. It can counterspell something really good. And if our opponent doesn't do anything too crazy, so they're going to go for Fight Rigging. Yeah, I think we'll just counter that. I was about to say, if they don't do anything too crazy, we could just use our Castle Vantress. Drawing a land. Do we go for the Hall? Hall or the redraw? This will put them down to 13. The redraw might end up being more important depending on the threat that they play. They also already have chump blockers for the Hall, so it's not necessarily the greatest strategy. We just get like 1 hit in right now. And then either way, we'd be winning the race if that's what they wanted to do. We'll just pass it back. And I think we'll just Vantress here. Feel a lot better about that rather than trying to just go all in on a 7/7. Okay, Regisaur. That's fine. And it's looking a lot better now that we didn't attack. Take the... I was about to say take the 2 damage, but opponent's still worried that we would try to block. And we can put both of these lands on the bottom, try to draw a useful spell off the top of our library and absorb. Still a counter spell. And we're just going to have to pass it back. Opponent's going to have to discard a card. Absorb does buy us a little bit more time. But right now we'd be taking 9, so even if our opponent tries to cast a spell and we gain to 3 life, we'd still be going down to 10. We almost have to worry about if they have a Fatal Push, because they're able to pay for it right now. And then maybe play another spell, and then we lose, potentially because we didn't gain some life off of the Absorb. I think we'll just have to take this hit and potentially see what they followed up with. If they don't follow it up with anything, then we still get another Vantress activation here to draw something better again. And we do have the Supreme Verdict and the Teferi. I think we have to keep both of those in that order. So we'll draw the Verdict, play it, holding up this Absorb. The opponent has 3 cards, but we're going to be able to stop one and then play one of our better cards off the top of our deck. So we'll absorb this, go up to 10. They just have a follow-up Landwerf. We'll top deck the Teferi. We'll play the Teferi. Draw a card. Get to untap a couple lands, hitting a Deluge. We'll untap these 2 lands. So I'm going to be able to draw 2 cards here out of our top 4, which is really great. Okay, Bloodcheese Thirst on the Teferi. It's a bit annoying, but we do have other cards in our deck that win the game. So we'll let that resolve. Opponent's going to put us down to 9. And we're going to be able to get a little bit of some card selection here. Grab a couple cards off the top. Maybe put some cards on the bottom that we didn't want. Narset and Absorb. I actually like both of these. And we also top deck a Supreme Verdict. I think we're just going to go for the Narset. Down tick on it. Gonna grab the Shark Typhoon. And we'll pass turn back. Now we have an absorb for whatever they drew. And we'll slam the Typhoon next turn, drawing another card off of the Narset. Even if they attack it right now, I'm not really too worried about losing this because this isn't even the best card in the matchup, right? Like, usually want this against the control deck. Could make a 2/2 Shark, but I think I would just rather try to slam the door. Yep, let's activate this one more time. And grab a Wandering Emperor. E6. So still can't hold up Absorb. I think I'd rather Wandering Emperor and Absorb than try to slam the Typhoon right now. That's a bad. Could also just make like a really, really big Shark. And we'll go and play Wandering Emperor, create a 2/2. And we just have Absence now. Now we can just play this. And attack. We'll make another 2/2 token. Gotta speed up the process here, just end the game as quickly as possible now. And even if they play a big threat, we already have an answer for it. They have Henge, but not really that threatening against an army of sharks here. And on top of that, we have a Supreme Verdict if our opponent was able to essentially draw out of it. And we just top deck it to Fairy. So we'll play that. Getting a big shark here. Uptick on a token. Uptick onto Fairy. Drawing a land. We'll play it tapped. Attack our opponent down to 15. And pass it back. We have 2 lands to untap as well. So untap both of these. And I think we'll just counterspell that. Get a shark. Kill the elf. Get another shark. And then just come in for a lot of damage. So against this matchup, I think I like the Aether Gust. It's okay. Like, they are playing a lot of black, so it's kind of hard sometimes with Aether Gust. A lot of the green decks usually splash another color, and if it's not red, then it becomes a little bit more problematic trying to play this. I really like the Settle the Wreckage or the 4th Supreme Verdict. Dream Trawler also can just like end the game outright. Farewell is fine. I think I'd rather cut a Typhoon for a Trawler. Narset was pretty good there, but it's just because of where we were at in the game. Censor, I think, is okay. But then we potentially would be wanting the Aether Gust. Let's take a look here. Veto doesn't really do so. I think we want the Verdict either way. Maybe get rid of the Censors. Just having access to more board wipes is fine. Maybe bring in the other Trawler, cut the Typhoon. Either one of those wins the game. I kind of just like almost splitting it just because the Typhoon can be a smaller spell early in the game. The question is, I guess Wandering Emperor is still fine just because it's removal. Would we cut the Narset and the Censor, and then what would we be wanting to bring in the other Trawler? I think I like the Aether Gust. Just one of them, though. And maybe even... Actually, yeah, let's cut a hole for the second Aether Gust. I think I like this a little bit more. The Aether Gust can at least deal with the fight rigging on the stack or in play. Whereas, like, the Portable Hole only really hits specific cards in their deck. This hand is, like, pretty slow. Kind of a little bit awkward, too. We would only really have 2 plays, and these are actually way worse on the draw. I think we kind of have to take a mulligan here. This hand is a lot worse than that hand, seeing as how we only have 1 mana. I'm not really able to cast any of our cards. And we do get 1 mana yet again, so we gotta go down to 4 here, unfortunately. And I think we are actually forced to have to keep this. And we are getting rid of a lot of our board wipes here as well, so gonna be a bit tough to overcome this. Might have wanted to keep our first hand, but at the same time our first hand was really awkward. We kind of just, you know, got really unlucky there by having to mulligan down to 4 cards. We do have some time, considering our opponent isn't doing anything yet, and one of our cards could be a potential X for 1. We have 2 counter spells, so if we tap deck a land, especially one that comes into play on tap, we're in business. Okay, Shakedown heavy. Unfortunately, we do not hit the land, so we will have to pass it back here. Our opponent has fight rigging here. We're definitely in a lot of trouble, but like I said, not really much we could do. We had to mulligan down to 4. And it looks like our opponent does have great henge and the fight rigging. So we are going to be taking... we can let them redraw. I think I'd rather just take the hit here for a turn. Okay, so we do hit the land, but we're taking 12 damage. We can't kill either of these cards, so we're hoping to top deck a land for the Supreme Verdict, and we have an Absorb now for whatever they play. So definitely in a tough spot, but you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we can still win this game. Ooh, it can't be countered. All right, well, I think we actually might be out of the game now. That was a pretty good draw, or a pretty good sideboard card from our opponent here. Really hoping to be able to absorb something to stay into the game there, but it just did not happen. Obviously, we mulligan down to 4. I mean, not really much else to say about that game. I think we want to stick to this game plan that we got going on here, though. Well, we drew our board wipes, so as long as we get our board wipes, we should be fine. Being on the play does make a big difference as well. And we'll be on the play. I think we definitely keep this. 2 removal spells. And a hard counter spell pretty much against their main card. Definitely play the Fountain tapped, pass it back. A little bit weak, like we're really looking for a card advantage card. Hitting Field of Ruin is okay. We'll go ahead and play Glacial Fortress and pass it back. Don't believe we saw any creature lands, and most of the time the fight rigging decks I don't think play creature lands. Maybe 1. 2 of them. Okay, opponent might be having a slow start again, which I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I was about to say, the deck doesn't really play too many 2-drops. I'll go ahead and pass it back. You can actually find some videos on the fight rigging deck on our channel as well. So definitely check that out. Okay, opponent up to 3 lands. They do have a Harbinger here. And I think we'll go ahead and cycle the farmland here. We have quite a bit of mana. Portable Holes, an okay draw. Absorb. It's pretty good. Yep, just going to pass it back here. Potentially just killing the Garrett's Harbinger. See if they play a spell first. Then we would have to take the hit and they'll get the redraw card, so... Okay, so they do play the fight rigging. Yep, we'll go ahead and veto. Kill the Harbinger. And get to untap with some decent cards here that we'll be able to hold up again for their turn. And we have Settle the Wreckage, which is great, so we can kind of let potentially a few creatures on the battlefield. Or if the game gets out of control, at least we know we might be able to use that to help us stabilize here. Rotting Regisaur, I think we'll just absorb that. Gain some life. Still have some removal spells. Another March. Which is pretty good. We'll pass it back here. See if our opponent just has lots of land drops. 6 cards in hand here. I've gone through some of their important cards. Yep, that card definitely resolves. And yeah, we're just going to kill it. And not have to worry about that anymore. Opponent's tapped out as well, which is great. Narset's pretty good. We will play it. If we need to exile this Portable Hole, we will. That's minus here. We get Ether Gust or Absorb. I think I'll take the Absorb. And we'll pass it back. Could have hold this, but I'm not sure. Still don't want a 2-for-1 myself for one of the cards that we got rid of earlier. I have 1 mana here, so it could just be like a Land War Elf. Okay, Boseiju. I think they tapped the wrong land though, right? Because they meant to tap the... Yeah, I think they meant to tap the Boseiju instead, so they're gonna crack the clue, but they can't do anything because we have Narset, so they kind of just double oops there. We'll down tick on the Narset here. Teferi, Shark Typhoon. I think we just grab Teferi. Play Teferi now. Get to untap 2 lands, so we get to hold up this Absorb, which is great. Drawing a card as well is always fantastic. Untap both of these, pass it back. So now we're just feeling like we're in complete control of the game. I mean, we got a Planeswalker that kind of can just potentially prevent our opponent from doing something, and our other finishing Planeswalker, but it looks like they gonna go and try this Bloodchief's Thirst, but we do have the Absorb for it. And we'll get the untap, draw with the Teferi. Farewell, pretty good draw. Make sure that the game doesn't slip away from us. And we'll just tap out for this here. And pass it back. Get the untap 2 lands, both of our fortresses. Holding up this March for kind of a lot if we really need to. Immortal Sun's pretty good. And we'll draw a card. And we'll do this for 6 on the Immortal Sun. We'll uptick on Teferi. Getting to pump up our Trawler even more. And it does look like our opponent's going to scoop it up. Go ahead and take that game down. Jump into some more games here with blue-white control. Hopefully get some Teferis down, you know, counter spells, the usual. Looks like we do have the mulligan here, as we only have 1 land in our hand. Looks like a somewhat decent hand outside of that. We can definitely keep this. Our opponent's playing Yorion. Do we want to keep the Fateful Absence is the question. I don't think, actually. I'd rather almost just hold these cards up. As weird as that is, because I get a feeling that we're going to be in the mirror match here. So yeah, we'll go ahead and start off with our own Hallowed Fountain tapped. Okay. So now we get to play 2 Absorbs, maybe. Opponent putting a card to the side. Could just be Multiverse. Just hoping they didn't main deck Narset like we do. Go ahead and pass turn back. Just holding up an Absorb. So they're going to Multitude here. They have Opt. Interesting. Okay. To the top. So maybe just could be a land that they were looking for. And I think it was just the land. So we play Island and pass back. Gonna try to Deluge here. Do they have a Deluge? They have Typhoon. Sure. Just a 2/2. We can deal with that with the March. Gonna hit us for 2 damage here. I'm gonna go for the Deluge. Might just have a Dovin's Veto main here for me, I feel like. Censor, sure. Withdraw, Farewell, not really too much of an explosive card in this matchup. I think we'll just pass back. Probably just exile the Shark token here and then absorb something if they try to play it. Or we could just save this for the Hall, considering it looks like the Hall's gonna come down. Let's take 2 more. See if our opponent tries to go for something. Do we just Vantress here? Yeah, let's try to hit a land. I don't think that we want either of these right now. Just trying to keep up on lands, but we do not draw one. Can't really cast a fairy either, so we have to pass it back here to our opponent. Memory Deluge. Yeah, I think we do have to absorb that. A little bit awkward, but I don't want them to draw more cards right now. They can do it again on their turn. If they tap out for that, then that's completely fine. But they're putting Yorion in their hand. And I think we'll just kill this. And I don't think that they have any counter spells is what it's looking like to me. They do have 3 mana. I think it's safer to just pass the turn. We don't want to get too greedy by trying to slam this to fairy without any counter backup. We'll Vantress. See if they have like a crazy instant. Doesn't look like they do. We get a Wandering Emperor and a land. Putting the land on top. I think we kind of want both of these. Play to fairy. We only have 2 mana left. I think we'll just pass and potentially Deluge. I think we'll just absorb that. And we still have a Disallow. But I don't really think that I care about that. Okay, we have Emperor. Pass it back. Opponent still does have more cards than we do. So that is a problem. Okay, they're going to Field of Ruin. Our Castle Vantress. We can disallow that if we want to, or use the Vantress in response. Using the Vantress in response does leave us up for 3 mana with a disallow if we need to. So the question is, how much do we value the scry here? Is it worth it to scry? Or try to potentially get a real threat down? I actually think I like the scry. Just because we're getting value out of it. And let's put that on the bottom. I like the land, just because it gives us more mana. We'll go ahead and get an island here, I believe. Yeah, an island here. Oh, completely forgot that we shuffled there too. So there actually wasn't really like a way for us to kind of sequence that. I mean, either way, our opponent is just passing back, so we got a lot lucky there. Could try to play this. Do they have double counterspell? That's a pretty good question, right? I think I'd rather just still try to play on their turn. Get a feeling that we're just mirror match pretty much here. We're trying to slam the Wandering Emperor. Deluge will potentially just get counterspelled, but it's potentially just worth it. Just at least get one counterspell out of their hand, then we can try to Teferi. And then still have the other counterspell in response for that. And we hit a Field of Ruin, which is really nice. 3. Yeah, let's go ahead and play Teferi now. Think it's going to resolve? It's looking like it maybe? Nope, they still have Assault coming. So yeah, we'll go ahead and counter that. Teferi comes down, we'll uptick. Drawing a land, we get to untap 2 lands, so untap the Field of Ruin, that way they can't just kill the Teferi with the Hall of the Storm Giants. And they have Yorion here, which doesn't necessarily do anything. It's just a 4/5. They do have 3 mana open. That's fine. I think we just kill the Hall here. They can't activate it. I'm gonna float the mana, maybe play something. Get our last basic out of the deck. They have an opt, that's fine. We have a Ganjo. Could slip this back into their deck, which I think is pretty good. And we also have Wandering Emperor, which isn't bad. Drawing, we'd probably have to draw something specific here. This does use most of our mana. If they counterspell the Wandering Emperor, they only deal the Teferi 4 damage. I think let's draw, try to dig deeper into the deck. Another Teferi. Can actually cast Farewell and still hold up the Wandering Emperor. I don't think that they have another... counterspell, right? I don't believe. No, let's just do this. See if it resolves. Okay, they did use their counterspell on that. That's fine. We'll go ahead and untap 2 lands here. Be able to cast our Wandering Emperor again. Yep, we're just going to opt. Still with just enough mana anyways to be able to do... It's actually a shame we can't do both, right? Yeah, we wouldn't be able to kill the Yorion either way, so let's see if they have another counterspell for us here. I'm going to go ahead and try to get this Wandering Emperor down. And our opponent's actually just going to concede. So we'll move on to game 2. Let's take a look. So we know that they're playing Control. This does draw them an extra card. They might have Multiverse. It's potentially worth it to play the other Narset. I mean, if they're playing Teferis, we want the other Narset either way. We want the Veto, Mysticals, and the Narset Hullbreaker. Very well, kind of just worked out there. Could have also attacked the Yorion to be safe, but I really wanted to just dig deeper into the deck. Teferi was just going to take 4, so it wasn't going to die yet. And we had another Teferi in hand, so we were theoretically could have drawn another card off of that Teferi one more time. Played the other Teferi, down-ticked on the Yorion, and then kind of just kept going from there. What do we want to get rid of? I guess the Settle? Farewell's still pretty good, especially if they just play some other enchantments. Fateful Absence, maybe not as good here. Or the Portable Hole. Go down on the Portable Holes and Fateful Absence. I guess Fateful Absence isn't really that great in this matchup, though. But what else do we want to bring in? We want to keep one of the settled wreckages, just in case. Or the Supreme Verdict. Supreme Verdict just outright can't be countered. I feel like that's a little bit better. I think I like this configuration. I kind of almost do want the Faithful. Just because it actually deals with the Teferi. But I think we're just going to go like this. Try to not let the Teferi resolve. Okay, going to be on the draw this time. A little bit more of like a reasonable hand. Slightly annoying because of the Field of the Ruin, but I think that we can keep it. I mean, we got 2 Dovin's Vetoes, which are going to be potentially fantastic in the early game. Being on the draw does make them a little less better, but I don't really mind it. You know, we just have 3 counterspells, a redraw, which is great. Opponent's just going to pass. We even hit a Narset. I think we're just going to play this Iganjo. It's not necessarily fantastic in this matchup. Yeah, looks like our opponent might just have like a Shark Typhoon. Don't think we play the Narset yet, and we don't really need to play the Field of Ruin because they don't have a Hall of the Storm Giants. And we want to make sure that we can still play our Absorb if we need to. And drawing a Glacial Fortress isn't bad. Just going to pass it back. Potentially Deluge. I think we'll veto here. Yeah, we veto. Just that way we can keep the other veto in case they try to Teferi. Which they could just try to jam it here, but it looks like they're just going to opt. Put it on the bottom. Maybe they're digging for a land. No, they do have a land. It's a temple. It's pretty good. And they keep it on top. But we draw a Wandering Emperor. We could Narset and still have the veto up. If they counterspell the Narset, we'd probably have to let it happen. I think I'm just going to be patient past turn back. And I think I'm just going to go for Deluge here. Try to hit some land drops, maybe. We got a counterspell for it. I feel a little bit better trying to play this Narset the following turn. Yep. So, didn't hit a land, but we have a Mystical Dispute. I think that's pretty good. I have potentially 7 cards, 8 cards with that next turn. We need to hit a land drop. This gives us 3, but they don't have something we want to hit still. A little bit awkward, but I'm passing back. We can maybe go for the line of Wandering Emperor plus Mystical Dispute. And that way we're forcing something, and then we can try to slam this. I just feel like this is more important right now for me. We really need to hit land drops and just hit more cards. Kind of dig deeper for the cards that we need. So we're both stuck on mana. I'm just going to go for this Wandering Emperor. And do they just have another Absorb? Going to try to counter it with our Mystical Dispute here. Salt coming. Try to dispute it. See if they have a follow-up counterspell, and they do not. So Wandering Emperor is actually going to get on the battlefield with downtick on it. Get a 2/2 Samurai. Untap. Still didn't hit a land. I think we have to downtick again. Come in for 2 damage. I think we Narset. Probably going to go through some lands here off the top, but we just have to do this now. And We already have an Emperor. We have a Typhoon. The March. I don't really think I want. I think I'd rather take the backup Wandering Emperor here. We're kind of a little bit more of the beat down right now, so want to keep just deploying these big threats out that our opponent just has to deal with. And it looks like they're still playing on Flash here at instant speed, so we'll uptick on the Wandering Emperor on a token. Think that we can downtick on this Narset here to dig deeper into the deck. We just hit a Supreme Verdict. It's not necessarily a card that we did want to see, but we'll get to come in for 5 damage. See if our opponent has something for us. They do not. And still no Hall of the Storm Giant. They can't do the Deluge. It's not looking great, but it's not looking terrible either. We're not out of it yet. We really need to hit some land drops here. So they do make a 4/4 Shark. That's fine. I think we just exile that. And we just kill it now. They get a redraw, but that's really about it. We could also make a 2/2 Shark ourselves. That could be what we want to do, considering it keeps the pressure up. Gives us a sizable battlefield. If they have Supreme Verdict, there's nothing we could do anyways, right? Can't be countered, so... yeah, it just looks like our opponent's going to scoop it up. They were kind of like pointing to the Narset there, and it does make it a lot harder for them to kind of dig out of like their situation with us having Narset on the battlefield. So we were able to take down, not necessarily like a mirror match, but able to take down a control matchup, so feels pretty good. Deck's looking great. Pizza people, are you enjoying the content? Don't forget, subscribe to the channel. It's free. Hit that bell icon as well. That way, anytime any of our new content comes out, you're able to see it right away. Hey, leave a comment down below as well. Tell us what you're going to play in the next event, or tell us what you're enjoying about the video. Don't forget, check out the description too. We've got tons of great content down below. And on top of that, we're going to have our tournament schedule too. So get in on it. Hope to see you. Playing some more Control. See if we can lock our opponents out of the game, essentially. And I really like this hand. We're on the play. We have our lands, we have our counter spells, and it's a fairy. Pretty close to the ideal hand. I don't think I want to pay life yet for this, not knowing what we're playing against. It actually looks like it's mono black aggro, so I'm still glad that I didn't pay the life for the Hallowed Fountain here. And our opponent's going to come in for 2. And I think I do want to cycle this Censor. Looks like our opponent potentially just had like a removal spell on turn 2. Deserter Beach great here. We're able to do this Absorb. Maybe still cycle the farmland. Might end up having to pay 2 life for one of these Hallowed Fountains, but it's not the worst thing. Really want to try to like dodge a Thoughtseize or a discard spell here. And they just have Demonic Embrace. I think we'll just veto that. Not really going to be many targets either way. And yep, go ahead and play our Hallowed Fountain tapped. Pass turn back. Our hand doesn't necessarily look great right now just because we do have quite a bit of mana, but you know, we do have a lot of good cards in our deck that we can draw into, a lot of good answers. Skyclave Shade. I think we'll absorb it, even though it's going to come back. Right now, let's see, do they have a land drop? So they're actually going to spend a land drop now and be able to replay it, which is pretty good. So Teferi only goes up to 5. So we're kind of actually in a tough spot against this aggro deck here. I think we do play the Hallowed Fountain tapped, and we'll pass it back here. If our opponent has a Snowland, we could end up taking a lot of damage. Let's cycle the Irrigated Farmland. Okay, we actually are drawing quite a bit of lands here. And we're probably just going to cycle this. Try to hit like a Supreme Verdict. Okay, Fateful Absence is fine. Go ahead and play Teferi. We will uptick on the Teferi as well. Trying to draw something good here. But it looks like they have a Murder Strider for us. Now we are going to be able to get to untap 2 lands to still use this Fateful Absence, but our card draw engine is not going to be here. That Deluge is actually a great draw though, because it does give us the opportunity to draw the cards that we need. And it looks like they are going to turn into a creature land. We'll go ahead and shoot that down. I was about to say they could end up tapping it for mana and then recasting it. So we're going to go down to 7, which is definitely not safe, but do get some more redraws here with the Deluge. So let's go ahead and pass the turn back to our opponent. Kind of just having a couple turns here before we are dead, but we still can find our way out of this game. And we'll go ahead and Deluge here, try to dig deep into the deck, find something that we need. And we do hit a Settle the Wreckage and a Fateful Absence. I think we will take the Settle the Wreckage, and I'm actually going to take the Absorb, as weird as that is. If our opponent tries to cast a spell, we can counter that and then have the Settle the Wreckage for their creatures in play, then follow it up with a Deluge to dig deeper into our deck to find the answers that we need. Disallow is actually just fantastic here as well. So we're going to play this tapped, pass the turn back to our opponent. They might end up using the Castle Locthwain. Okay, just going to go for the Clue activation. That's fine. I really need to hold up this Absorb and the Settle the Wreckage right now. So our opponent is going to attack. We'll go ahead and Settle the Wreckage. And we have 2 counter spells here, which feels pretty good. And a redraw spell. One of the counter spells does gain us some life to help get us back into the game. And we'll go ahead and see what our opponent is up to here. And they try to go for the Murder Strider. I think we'll actually just disallow that. Or excuse me, absorb it to gain some life. And on top of that, it's just actually going to go straight to the graveyard. We have Farewell, which is pretty good. I think we're just hoping to hit this Deluge right now. They might use their Faceless Haven. We can disallow it. Deluge, trying to hit... Disallow it. I think we're just going to try to hit a removal spell here in response. So we have Censor, Veto, we have Portable Hold, doesn't really do anything. I think we have to Typhoon. 6, 3, 6, yeah. And Absorb. They attack with that. It'll give them with 3 mana. Yeah, I like the life gain. Yep, gonna have to take 4 here, go down to 1. So if they have a way for us to lose life, we're definitely gonna be dead. Do they have a follow-up play? Probably do. I mean, they just have so many cards in their hand. It's kind of outrageous right now. Spawn of Mayhem, it deals 1 damage to each player. Ooh. Sure. That resolves. Can't do anything about it. Yeah, Portable Hole. All creatures, all graveyards. Yep. Yep, gonna pass it back. At 1 life here, trying to survive. Gonna activate that. If we do this, sure. They have another Face of Saving. They're going to activate that as well. So yeah, we can't stop both, unfortunately. We just got down to 1 and they had to spawn in the Mayhem. So I was going to deal us the damage that they needed. Let's bring in all of our removal spells here. And we want the trawlers. I don't think we want anything else. Get rid of these sensors. Dovin's Veto is a little bit weak in this matchup. Not really outside of maybe like some Planeswalker removal we want to get rid of, but we can kind of lean more like the Typhoons and the Trawlers to win the game. The rest of our sideboard looks okay. We want some Rest in Pieces, maybe like 1. I like the idea of a Rest in Peace. Get rid of a Typhoon. And we play both, just to make sure that their cards are gone. They also have Demonic Embrace. Yeah, let's play both Rest in Pieces here. Maybe get rid of the Narset. It does dig us deeper into a board wipe. Like, would we rather cut a Deluge for that? I don't think so. It's like, Deluge I think is just better, right? I think I kind of like that a little bit more. Let's see if we can control this beatdown deck. They kind of had a little bit of a good start, and let's say our cards didn't necessarily line up great every time either. And this hand is pretty weak, but at the same time, we have our lands, we have a removal spell. I think I'm going to keep it. We even had the Field of Ruin for a creature land. I think we'll go for it and see what we can do. Okay, they have Knight of the Legion. We hit it to Fairy. Let's pass it back. We can kill the Knight. Yeah, we'll take 1. Maybe we just cycle the farmland instead, I think is almost a better play here. Yeah, let's do that. I'd rather exile the Skyclave Shade. Ooh, Absorb's pretty good. Dream Trawler is nice. Pass back. Let's see what our opponent does here. They do have the Faceless Haven. I think I'll save myself some life here. Or do we go down to 15? Let's go down to 15 and see what they have as backup. Yeah, if they use that, then I'm actually just going to kill this card. That's their whole turn. We just take 3. Maybe we do still just kill the Shade just to make sure that that card's gone. If our opponent is just spending their turn to pump this up for 3 damage, we're like completely okay with that. We actually have an Absorb that helps stall the game out for another turn. I guess this does keep growing, quote unquote, so maybe that is a little bit more frightening. And on top of that, our Trawler can't block it. I think that's still fine. I don't want the recursive threat. See if this is all that they have. Can't activate the creature land, which is good. We do have a Field of Ruin for that as well. Yep, just going to take 2. And they have a Scrounger with no creatures in the graveyard. I think I'll gain the life. Yep. See if they have another follow-up play. No follow-up play to that. We have Teferi to potentially play, but then it could die. Yeah, let's play this tapped and then pass the turn back. Like, I really hope that they hit a Snowland, then we can just settle them. And then play our Dream Trawler into the Teferi, which feels really good. So it looks like they just have this. I mean, we could also just settle here. The problem is that we're not guaranteed to have another land. I think I'm fine doing this. It's strange, but this also draws us a card. Like, if we have to discard the Teferi to this to protect it, kind of okay with that. And we're drawing an extra card now, so that's actually really good. Yep. Get a Trawler down, pass a turn. Looks like they don't have a spell right now. They could have a Murderous Rider or two, but we have two cards we'll just discard and keep our Dream Trawler around. Okay, a Yara. So they're going to get to drain us here. And they have a Spawn. So Spawn can block the Trawler. But we're going to get to draw quite a bit of cards here. And drawing that Settled Wreckage is kind of what the Doctor ordered. So let's see here. If we play this, Teferi, yeah, we'll get to untap 2 lands. So let's uptick on the Teferi. Making the Trawler bigger. Let's go to attack with the Trawler. It's going to get even bigger here. Opponent's going to take the 6. Go back up to 20. Pass a turn back. Untapping a Field of Ruin and the Hallowed Fountain, giving us options of both whether or not we want to settle or just Field of Ruin the creature land. See how they attack here. If they only attack with a Spawn, not really sure if it's worth settling at that point. Maybe we just want to get rid of the land. They actually end up just attacking both the Teferi, and we just have to settle the wreckage here. They do have Murderous Rider targeting the Teferi. Sure. That's fine. We have the Dream Trawler. That's still the most important thing on the battlefield for us. Teferi is obviously just great because it's more of an engine. And they do have a Routing Regisaur, which is a pretty big card, but we still have some answers here. Irrigated Farmland is not one of them, unfortunately. We're going to play our island. Let's attack with the Trawler, see what we can hit off of the draw. Okay, let's cycle the Farmland. Portable Hole, still not what we want to see, but we do get to hit our opponent for 6 damage here. And I think we just have to pass. Opponent does have to discard a card. They activate one of their creature lands. We actually have 2 Field of Ruins. And we'll go ahead and take 7. And opponent does have another Routing Regisaur, which is actually quite frightening. Okay, and they have a Murderous Rider, which does gain some life. So we're kind of hoping to hit some draw cards here. And yeah, we'll get to untap draw. So we hit an Otawara, which is fine. Let's attack with our Trawler here. See if we can draw something good. Another Plains, which is a bit unfortunate. Go ahead and come in here. And I think that we just have to pass the turn back. Yep, so they don't have any cards to discard. We have an Otawara to kind of help us from some damage here. They just hit another creature land. They're going to castle Log Twain. We're fine with that. They go down to 1. Probably just activate their Faceless Haven and try to come in. And we'll just take down game 2 there. Let's take a look. Well, like I mentioned, it's kind of a bit scary. Narset does help against Castle Log Twain, but we don't mind them dealing themselves damage. We'd rather have Narset, though, is the question. I don't think so. Rest in Peace would have been okay. I think I want to do this. And it's going to feel bad if we draw both Rest in Pieces. It seems like it's just like good if we have it. I'd rather just have the Narset because it digs me deeper into the deck and could stop their card advantage cards, right? And it looks like we're going to have to take a mulligan here, unfortunately. A little bit more of a keepable hand, but definitely not a hand that we want. As our opener, we're not even able to play this Absorb yet, unless we use our Field of Ruin. But it looks like our opponent is also going to go down to 5. They hit a Dreadwander. So we're going to get a little bit of some beat down here from our opponent. Really hoping to draw some untapped lands here. Back to back would be pretty good for this Absorb. They do have a Skyclave Shade. And we do have an Aganjo, so let's go ahead and get this farmland down. And we're getting closer to this Supreme Verdict, or excuse me, this Settle the Wreckage, which is going to be really good. And yep, we'll go ahead and play this Aganjo, potentially absorbing whatever card they play, and then settle the wreckaging them. They have 2 mana. They don't do anything, actually. Let's go ahead and get this Glacial Fortress down. Pass it back. We could also Wandering Emperor to gain a couple life. That might end up being a better play, considering their opponent's a little bit mana screwed right now. So let's go ahead and just do that. We'll down tick on the Skyclave Shade, exiling it for good. Gaining a couple life in the process, going back up to 10. And it looks like our opponent is going to get rid of the Wandering Emperor, but we're completely okay with that. And we do have a Castle Vantress here, which is great. So let's go play that. Drawing the Deluge is fantastic. Don't think that we want to use a Settled Wreckage on just a Dreadwander. So we'll go ahead and take that. Let's see if our opponent plays a spell afterwards. And they have a Skyclave Shade. I think we will absorb that for the life to kind of stall a little bit longer. And we hit another Settle the Wreckage. So let's play the Hallowed Fountain tapped. We'll pass it back. We're going to take 2 damage here, go down to 7 again. They're not going to play the Shade, which is actually interesting. They don't have a land drop, though. We have a Trawler and Teferi. Those are the 2 best cards we can have. Draw March, land into Trawler. And we'll pass it back. And we're kind of just in complete control of this game. Yeah, pretty impossible for our opponent to dig out of that board state. So our opponent got a little bit unfortunate in that instance. You know, if you kind of slip up against control, it's very much like a lot of decks where, you know, if you have a little bit of like a stuttering start, then you're just going to be so behind that it's going to be kind of impossible for you to come back. And we just had every answer in the book. Plus, on top of that, we had 2 different ways of winning the game there. So not really much that our opponent could have done. I think that our ability to pull back in the second game of this match is what really got it there for us. So we'll see you for the post-game wrap. All right, here for the post-game wrap. Well, this deck really feels like it's hard to beat sometimes when it gets going. And, you know, you don't even really need to get going. You gotta just need to stop what your opponent's doing until you can hit some of your bigger cards. But overall, I mean, this deck was just a house. I think that with the inclusion of Supreme Verdict is just fantastic. I think that that's one of the last cards that the deck needed. And it definitely gives you an edge against aggro mid-range where you're able to just hit that card right on time. Against Spirits, it can't be countered, so it's really, really good there. But overall, I had a blast with this deck. I think it's just phenomenal. I definitely recommend it. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, please hit that subscribe button, the bell notification. Leave a like on the video and a comment down below. Any of this would be greatly appreciated. Check out in the description links to my content and links to our tournaments that we host. 3 a month, all are free to play. This weekend we actually have a standard tournament, so definitely get in on that and stay cheesy.